Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. My name is Jordan with a silent PH in the middle, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. It is a very hostful episode, as I am back, not disappeared from the world. But I hear we had a good show with Danimal last week, so...
I feel like it was a pretty good show. I hope everybody else did. We got to dive into Dungeon of the Mad Mage quite a bit, and I even got a bunch of questions from comments and stuff with other people that were running it and talking about it too. So it seemed relevant still. So that was good.
Did you guys have your big hash out about that room that you hated, and we finally got all the deep dirt?
Yep. And he, I kind of explained my part of it, and he kind of understood it, and he kind of understood from the way it was written, and it was just one of those things. And even for me, I just kept saying, had you thrown me a saving throw in there at any one point, my brain never even would have thought to argue the whole point. But once I couldn't do it, I was just like, I couldn't get my brain out of that. I just got taken out of it, and I just was, But we got through it, and we had a lot of fun, and it's been a good campaign. So
yeah. No, I mean excited. that I would say hiccup, but I wouldn't even want to call it that. Yeah. The stories and camaraderie that you guys have going through Dungeon of the Mad Mage so far, you're fine. Like you're not. This is not what you're gonna think of when you finish that campaign. No, but it was an interesting topic of conversation. And
it reinforced that we want the badges. That if you make it all the way through, you don't give up. You get all the way through. We want the Dungeon of the Mad Mage badge.
I need to. I wonder if I just start a Kickstarter for those, if Wizards would sue me.
I don't know. That's what I was wondering. Could we just...
I know there's certain companies, like Nintendo's very sue happy, and if there and there's certain Kickstarters that'll appear that are very Nintendo safe but adjacent, and then Nintendo smashes it down. But that one, I'm like, what if I just stole the logo for Storm King's Thunder and made patches for it?
Well, and there are lots of people that use or do merchandise deals with them. I wonder what it actually means if you were to try to do a merchandise deal with them to say, hey, we would like to make badges. We'd like to use some of this artwork. Is there a deal there? Is it too hard? Is it too expensive to do it that way? Or are they like, well, yeah, we can license you for this and we get 2% of that and you're good to go. I have no idea. I've never understood. But there must be lots of people out there because you see so much D&D stuff. How are they getting the license?
Right.
And how are they... not getting
well,
sued?
They have money, I think. I don't.
That
have
could
money,
be.
So
that could be.
Jordan's
rich. That's what
I think. I think we're clearly interested or having an interesting conversation because the chat is talking about the difference between Fahrenheit and Celsius and how cold it is. So, clearly, this is the topic of conversation. Just so everybody knows, I am getting over a little bit of a cough. It is not COVID, but if I mute myself randomly, that is why. But yeah, so. We didn't get to talk about this last week because I wasn't here, but I wanted to bring it up about Vox Machina, which is the Amazon TV show. Apparently there was some controversy because of, like, the Kickstarter. It was supposed to be free, not free, but, like, the people who Kickstarted it, the first season is supposed to be available to them, but now it's being available through Amazon. And you can only watch it if you have Prime, but those people were allowed to sign up for like a free month of Prime to get it. I don't really understand, but it's one of those things where, you can't be upset at a Kickstarter because they can just take your money and run. And they could promise the moon, and then when they don't deliver, it's like, well, it's kind of on you for backing them. And I hate to say that out loud because I do think that if you're investing in a Kickstarter, there should be some accountability. But this is one of those things where I'm like, they are technically providing it to you for, or allowing you to have access without a paywall. But at the same time, Amazon's just like, well, no, we want money. Like... get those people signed up for Amazon Prime. So, I don't know.
And that's a weird one because they do the Kickstarter before Amazon Prime's involved.
Oh, yeah.
And then Amazon Prime gets involved after the fact. So almost takes over that project in a way, but yet it was kickstarted by the audience. So yeah, I could see how.
No, and that, yeah, exactly. Like we're having. I mean, you kind of you're in this weird area where you're just like, ooh, the fans, but then they're $1 million, multi-million-dollar company at this point. I can't imagine that they're not making deals, and then people think it's like, oh, it must be like Matt and Travis sitting down with Amazon hashing it out, and I'm like, I mean, I think there's a lot of lawyers that are sending emails back and forth, and then someone goes to Matt and Travis and say, this is what we want to do because it's the best financial blah blah blah, and they're like, okay. So like, I don't know, creative people are not necessarily the best business people, if that makes sense, and I think they're allowing the business people to make the decisions. But
here's the thing I'll say.
Are they alienating their fan base by doing this? I guess that's the big question. They'll be fine.
One thing you said there, though, Matt and Travis. Actually, I saw executive producers was Matt and Scanlon.
I'm sure. So Travis is the CEO.
Yeah, it was Travis and
Critical Role,
it was Travis and Scanlon, not Matt. So I was thinking maybe Matt might not have a lot. Maybe he didn't care or didn't want to be,
or he's busy.
Like he's doing voices and he's doing it, but he's like, I don't want to run any of that stuff. Somebody else run that. And I think that's where Travis stepped up. And why can't I remember what's his name? Sam.
Yeah. You kept saying Scanlon.
Sam.
Like,
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's because I could only remember. But yeah, their two names are on the executive producers. Nobody else's was, which was interesting. I thought that was
So we were just talking before the show. I've only seen the first 3 episodes, which hit my mic. That's not good. Which I've only seen the first 3 episodes, which I watched last week. I haven't seen these. The next 3 are out, I think. You've watched a little bit farther than me.
I watched 2 more last night, and I felt like all of them were out now. Like it seemed like there was even more than 3, but maybe I'm wrong.
And Nathan says Sam is a producer in real life, so this was just like a role he knew, and he like stepped up to it. Okay, that's good to know.
That makes sense to me. Yeah,
it does make a lot of
sense. Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on the show? Are you liking it?
I did mine last week. I want to hear yours first. I want our audience to hear Jordan's.
Yeah.
Take.
So I don't know Vox Machina very well, other than I know Scanlon, I guess, and Grog. Those are the 2 characters that I knew. And then it was weird because I kept thinking, like, isn't Jester? No, Jester isn't in this. And, like, that's my iconic Critical Role character in my head. But I was like, okay, that's a season 2. Second campaign, yeah. So I was like, okay, I haven't listened. And that's actually, I started when I was earnestly trying to get through Critical Role. I started with campaign 2 because I'm like, okay, it's brand new. I'm going to go through it kind of a thing. But everyone tells me campaign 1 is better. Haven't even touched campaign 3. I haven't listened to anything of it. Although Matthew Lillard was on, apparently. I saw some pictures of him. I think a Beetle and Grimm's Critical Role thing is happening, so he was guest starring on the show,
I can see that.
which is really cool. I like Matthew Lillard a lot. He's fun. I like it. The animation is that new... like the Dragon Prince, and I don't know, it's that new type of animation where it's like pseudo anime. Does that make sense? I was thinking like the Netflix anime, because Netflix has done a bunch of shows with this style. That is a perfect way of putting it. Netflix anime is what it feels like. And I don't dislike it at all. No. But it didn't stand out as a separate show to me. I was kind of like, oh, like I really wanted the art style to be like, when I watch it, I'm like, oh, that's Critical Role kind of a thing. But it's not bad by any means. It's like, it's fun. And in my mind, the joy of the Critical Role as a actual play podcast show to watch is to see the little, to peer behind the curtain, if you will. And so that is the fun, I think, where you have this like really awesome story, but then at the same time, you have them being like, oh, like I rolled a 1 or I did this, or fumbling to figure out like what to use. And this is very much just a narrative story in the world of Tal'Dorei. I was thinking we would get more like behind the scenes D&D things. You know, like not just references to, oh, he's got Bigsby's hand, or, oh, you know, so-and-so can turn into a wolf, or Grog says, I would like to rage, and things like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know, and it's weird because I was watching it and I'm like, I don't know what I was expecting, but it didn't hit the mark for me. But I think I'm also not the target audience. And overall, I'm going to keep watching because I found it enjoyable enough to keep watching, and I want to know where this story's going. So I don't know. I liked it. I like the characters. Ironically, Scanlan is my least favorite, I think, which is weird because I think he's everyone's favorite and he's the comic relief. But I was like,
yeah, no, I'm with you.
He was not the one that I just didn't like that character as much.
This rendition of him, I just was not. Yeah, I was not in. So what about the comparing? You watched episode 1, 2, and 3. Any comparisons there as far as how it starts versus how 3 kind of ends up?
Yeah, 1 and 2 very much feel like a pilot where it's like we're gonna really invest this. But that's fine because that's what it is. It is a pilot show. And every show, a lot of shows have a rocky start kind of a thing. And I don't even want to call this a rocky start. It just felt like a pilot. But I think as the popularity goes and as the team maybe allow some other writers to come in and kind of tweak and work it, it might explode in a way that I have not seen. Arguably, it's one of the coolest fantasy shows out there, and I don't know. I really did like Grog though, and I feel like that was
Grog's awesome.
I think that was the underlying D&D jokes that I wanted. Was his little aside commentary, and I can't even think of it right now because it's been a while, but like they would say stuff and he would drop the real world, like, oh, but I thought he was a bird or something. I don't know. I should have written it down, but I really liked his commentary.
He has the best jokes. I think
his jokes were very good, and they were very deadpan, and I love deadpan serious jokes like that. And it was fun. Yeah. The swearing was a little out of place for me, and I'm not against swearing, but when I see this like fanciful blah blah blah, and then they're just like, oh, F-bomb, it's something to get used to, but I think that's also on brand for them. Like that's part of their world is that they are this like really crude adventuring company. So
see, and I never picked that up watching them play. They sort of did it, but for whatever reason, it didn't stand out to me as much as it does in the show. Because it's spaced out by them being goofy. And like you said, oh, I rolled a 1, or them having, cool and fun banter amongst each other and listening to Matt. Then maybe somebody has, they might say an F word to this person, or, they might say something to their like, something Scanlan does that's pretty racy. But it's so far in between that my brain never picked up on it that it was a big deal. In the show, they're happening back to back to back to back to. I'm like, I don't think you'd let kids watch this show. This isn't really a kids anime cartoon.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think it is. I don't think they decided it to be like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we found out. We did a little research in last week's show, and Amazon wanted an adult show. They did not want a kids cartoon. So that was one of the things they did. But I was just surprised because that's not the group I thought they were, and yet that is kind of the group they are. So, that's okay. I felt like the first 2 episodes were kind of disjointed, kind of rocky. I didn't really like any of them, like any of the characters. Grog was about the only one, but even then I was like, am I going to really want to watch these? Because if you don't like the characters, why would you watch the show? But it wasn't till episode 3 that they finally found, okay, here's the storyline we're going to tell.
Yeah.
Here's the thing we're going to do. This whole thing about Percy's story that we're going to put front and center.
Yeah.
Really brought it together for me. And then you get to the next 2 episodes and they keep moving on this. And now I feel better about the show than I did, say, last week when I watched it, because now it feels a little bit more cohesive.
Yeah. 3rd episode was really good. Vampires. Like, I just like vampire villains. And I think that was Matt doing the voice of him, right?
I'm thinking. Although I believe they did bring a lot of people.
No, they did. Voices, I know they did, but I was trying to pick it out, and it's like it's weird now that I'm like trying to like pick out different voice actors. But 3rd episode was fun. I'm curious where it's gonna go, and And I think there was another. This is my last like problem, I'm gonna say, but one of the reasons that I don't think I like Scanlan's character is everyone else is treating it really serious. Like the world is serious, and yes, they're like, we're gonna get drunk and we're gonna do this. And the twins specifically, you have these twin elf, half elf people, and they're very serious. And Liam's character, like very serious and stuff. And then over there you have Scanlan, who feels like Sam is just making jokes at the table, but now they've turned that into a character that is very the opposite of the rest of the world, you know, where it's like we're all kind of, I don't know, but does that make sense? Like,
yeah, he feels out of place to me for sure. He's not the audience stand-in like I thought he might be, and his jokes are more modern, whereas the show is a high fantasy show.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to walk out with an electric guitar or something at some point. And it's like, that doesn't fit in the world of Tal'Dorei in my mind, but I also don't know the world of Tal'Dorei, so maybe it does fit. And I am, you know, so. And
I liked his character throughout watching the real play show, and I liked Grog and probably, you know, Vex and Vax. They were all pretty cool characters. But right now, and I don't want to say hated, that's a strong word. I didn't like Percy so much when they played it, the way Taliesin had played it. But now, the way they get to write out his dialogue and the way they get to show his facial expressions and the character art they've done for Percy, I'm really invested in that character for sure. I love everything that's happening. So now he's my favorite.
And he's the one with the gun,
as far
right?
as being funny. He's he has the gun. He's the one that wants to go back to Whitestone. Yeah. Because his family is, you know, got taken from his family, the Rolos, and like now I'm into it. I couldn't even have told you that much because I didn't pay attention to his character or character art because I liked some of the other characters. But now that I'm watching the show, I'm like really into his DeRolo family and how these people have come in, subsumed his town and city, and you know, this is an interesting thing.
Yeah, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but new campaigns are popping up in my life, and I've been thinking about a lot of different characters, and I definitely am leaning towards one that is a lot like Percy. I'm like, I really want like a gunslinger kind of magic investigator person, and it's because of that episode. I was like, it's really cool.
It was really cool. It was really cool, and I can't wait to see him really get more of the stuff they're known for, the bigger gun. I think he eventually gets a bigger gun, and he has a couple of different ones he can use, and all the action seems pretty cool and fun. I was still having, like you said in the very first part, I wasn't necessarily at this point linking this show to Dungeons and Dragons, though.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy show, and it could be like The Dragon Prince. It could be like Castlevania on Netflix. It could be like any one of these other fun and cool, and I like to watch them shows. But I didn't think, oh, this is quintessential D&D while I was watching it. Just like when I watched Arcane, I was like, look at all the stuff they're bringing in from League of Legends. This is so legal.
Yeah.
Like every little callback to the art style and the buildings and all the characters that were in there. And I was just like, oh, little things here and there. I wasn't getting that yet from this show. So I couldn't say to somebody, hey, you like D&D? Hey, go watch this show. And that's what D&D is.
That's a good way of putting it, because you're right. If I'm like, oh, I want to know what D&D is, I wouldn't say, well, go watch Vox Machina. Like, but if you enjoy Critical Role, I would say go watch Vox Machina.
Go watch.
So
this is,
I don't know. Yeah.
This is a fan service. To me, it feels like perfectly made for the fans of Critical Role already. Mm-hmm. I don't know about fans who have never heard of Critical Role.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll bring in more D&D fans. Yeah.
Yeah, what they would think of it.
I will say that I, speaking of Arcane, which was a really good series too, but I hope that these being popular and doing really well, like Arcane did really well, Vox Machina seems like it's blowing up because of the Kickstarter and stuff, that we do get more, hey, we have this world, let me tell a story in it. Kind of like, I want to do a 10 episode, and I guess this doesn't count because they made a Warcraft movie, but like, I'm going to make a 10 episode World of Warcraft show or something. But in that vein, I would love if they just made new characters and did like an Eberron 10-episode series. Like Arcane. Like that's when I was watching Arcane, I just kept thinking
lean
like
into the world of Eberron.
If this is really popular, producers are going to start looking out and they're going to be like, well, what do you got? It's like, well, we've got this cool like Arcane kind of world called Eberron with warforged robots and blah blah blah. Oh cool, I'm going to tell a story there. And then we get a really cool 10-episode thing. And same with like Vox Machina. Like Vox Machina is doing really well, and they're just like, oh, well, let's do like a Forgotten Realms story, or let's do this. And not that I want that over Vox Machina or anything, but it's one of those ideas that I really like. That it's kind of like when Star Wars came out, and it was so popular that all these people were like, we got to make Star Wars-y kind of things. And we got some really bad stuff out of that, but we also got some really fun stuff out of that, you know? And the world of just that people were like, wow, I really like this sci-fi fantasy kind of thing. And then producers going out and making new content. So I have high hopes that we'll get more shows like this, which I think is a good thing. So
yeah, and I think Arcane and using this style of animation can still tell a better D&D story than we can live action, I think, because
and that movie's still
we can do
out,
a lot of good effects, but we're still just not there that I think a cool live action. I still think it'd be hard to do a live action D&D show that would just blow people away. Because there's just so many things and effects that you have to do. I think that would be quintessential.
Yeah.
Dungeon of the Mad Mage, if that was the movie that was coming out, how do you do that quintessential? You can definitely do it with the anime and the over-the-top type fighting and the quick moves and the way you can artistically show sword fighting and bow fighting and spell slinging and all the stuff and creatures that are just unimaginable versus trying to do that live and then have green screen crazy monsters that don't quite fit with the characters or whatever. I know some groups have been able to pull, obviously like those big companies can pull that kind of stuff off, but I don't know. I think this style, you could put out a couple of really good Dungeons and Dragons centric stories. You could do a Dragonlance story. You could do a Forgotten Realms story, you could do Drizzt for sure in this type of art style, the Arcane art style, and nail D&D. I'm sure.
Yeah, it would be really
Greenwood
interesting.
Justice, right? So I'm excited. At least we're getting it. I like it. If you're a Critical Role fan, I do not miss it. I'm sure you won't because you're a Critical Role fan. I think I would have liked a show about Campaign 2 more than I want to see a show about Campaign 1. But episode 3 started to change my mind, and episode 4 and 5 has pulled me in. So I don't want to spoil a bunch for everybody, but I think if you can stick through 3, 4, and 5, I think you'll really start to really get into it.
Yeah. No, my goal is to watch it. I'm busy for a long time, but and it's funny. We were talking before the show. Like I've been playing so much Super Smash Brothers on the Switch that. Last night I was like, oh, I should really watch like the latest episodes because of the show tomorrow. We're probably going to talk about it, and then I ended up playing like 90 minutes of Switch. So, there you go. Sometimes you need a video game break, though. But speaking of Critical Role, Netherdeep, Call of the Netherdeep, which is an adventure / source book. I think Wizards of the Coast is having more luck with those, where it's like kind of like. Van Richten's Guide, where it's like a little bit source book, but a lot of like adventure stuff as well. That hybrid model that they've been doing. That's coming out May 15th. And then Monsters of the Multiverse, which is out if you buy all 3 of them, now. But not out if because you have to wait until May, which is a ridiculously long time. I don't understand why we're waiting so long for that book. That just boggles me. It's really frustrating.
There's a quick question in chat just before we keep going there. They said, what if I've never really watched any of the Critical Role real play, haven't really bounced off it completely? Would you recommend watching this anime show? And I say, if you like the Netflix type animes like that Castlevania, Arcane, Dragon Prince, some of these types of newish animes that have been coming out, and you don't mind probably the cursing and some of the little bit more raciness, then yeah, I think it's a great show for anybody to watch, and binge watch and have a good time. I don't think you have to go back and try to watch all the real plays to get anything out of the show more than it is.
They did a really good job of setting it up.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know all the characters, but I definitely understood all of the characters by the third episode. You're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you're this. And so, and that's what they wanted, right? They wanted just to tell a story with these characters. It's not necessarily like I think I read one of the Vox Machina comics that Matt Colville wrote. And that was the same thing. Like, I didn't need to know those characters. You start reading and you enjoy the characters and you get to know them and stuff. So, yeah, I don't think you need to be a fan to watch it. And I definitely, if you're interested in fantasy stuff, like, give it a shot. Like, why not?
Oh, I did have one question for you. Did you think the show was going to take place in the timeline that we're in?
I don't know what timeline we're in.
Okay, so you had no idea when they talked about doing the show... because I had heard and I had thought when this was coming out, it was stories about before their roleplay session
before the roleplay started.
That's what I kept hearing.
No, I thought it was just going to be an adventure with those characters. So I didn't think there was going to be any like I thought if you listen to the show, you would be familiar with the characters, but here's a new adventure with those characters. That was
doing the show story.
Yeah, but I don't have anything to back that up, Like, it's kind of like how, I don't know, like, you remember, like, TV shows, and then they would do the TV movie, and it would be, like, canon, but not canon? That's kind of how I thought this was. But, but I don't know, so.
No, this is following the storyline. Like, you can go back and watch them play through this part that they're talking about.
Okay.
So it's right in it.
Cool. Well, there you go. My cat is destroying my chair.
All right. So yeah, March 15th, Call of the Netherdeep, we'll get another Critical Role book. And May 17th, Monster of the... I also think they did this Call of the Netherdeep to capitalize a little bit on the Amazon show dropping.
Oh, yeah.
In January. Here we have a book we can throw out, our first book of the year for Wizards
So
of the
I
Coast.
wonder if Monsters of the Multiverse was supposed to be March, but then they I don't know.
Maybe they wanted to do a little tie-in. I could see that. So, all right, yeah. So other news that we saw out there, I saw on Twitter rolling around. You can probably go to their website. The Feats survey. Did you fill out the Feats survey, sir?
I didn't. I haven't filled out a survey in a while. But I think the last one I tried to fill out, it was so long, I was just like, ugh. But what is this one about? Is it like literally rank every feat in D&D?
I haven't taken this one quite yet either. I know I was hearing some talk about it, and they are just talking about the types of feats and which ones you like and which ones you didn't like. And I think what they're trying to figure out is a big part of it was, did you like the ASI being tied to a feat in the thing that it did in the feat?
Yeah.
Versus maybe something being separate, or how often should you get them? Do you use them in your campaign? Does your dungeon master not use them in the campaign? Because they are technically optional in the player's handbook. I don't think the feat is a... Feat
is an optional rule.
Right.
And you're right, it does replace your ASI, your ability score improvement. But I've found that I don't like... If we're rolling stats, then it's always like, oh, I might as well take a feat because I have really good stats already. Mm-hmm. And so the compromise I've been having is that I really like that you reward feats to players. So it's like, you know what, you're getting really good with a crossbow, take this. Or I noticed this about you, kind of a thing. Or just allowing people to take a feat at a certain level. That's been better for me to do. Mm-hmm. Rather than... I don't know. And the latest campaign that I was pitching, I said everybody could have a free feat at first level because I wanted them to feel like heroes. And so you are way better than other people because you, and that is reflected mechanically by having this feat. So there's lots of homebrew ways to do it, but actually following the optional rule Wizards D&D stuff, I don't really like how feats are implemented and the power difference of them. Certain feats are oh, that's that kind of adds to my character, and other feats are this literally changes everything about how my character works. And so
I like that it allows you to customize your character away from anybody that shares the same class as you, right? So if me and you are a fighter, but we pick different feats, that's the thing that makes us stand apart a lot. Plus, a lot of times your subclass can do that too. But sometimes the difference between champion and battle master, you're seeing some things there, but a lot of stuff is completely the same. But if all of a sudden you take like, two-handed weapon master, and I take, sharpshooter for longbow, we have two very different fighters at that point. So I like the idea that feats can help you get your character to that image that you thought about in your head when you're trying to get them there, because the class might not have the exact thing that you need to say, hey, I'm trying to make Iron Man here, and I need this thing to get me this kind of cool, I need to do this fly, I need this repulsor thing, I need this, and I can get those with feats sometimes and plug them in and make the thing I want and have that sit in my class. So I think they're important. I wish they were a part of the game normally, not just optional.
Every game I've played has implemented them, though.
Yeah, every DM typically likes
and BK Dan just points out, like, if it's optional, why is it open in Adventure League? And I don't have an answer for that, other than I'm sure the Adventure League, council of liches got together and said we will allow this, because that's how Adventure League works. But you're right. Like, it does say, I think, that it is an optional rule, but I don't know anyone who doesn't allow it. Some people might limit certain ones. And I was just thinking about feats the other day because I was looking at a list of them, and there are certain feats that they're so cool, but they if your DM is not using the rules that make them cool, then they fall flat. And specifically, like, Spell Sniper says you ignore 3/4 and half cover. But I don't play in games where my DM has been utilizing that, Ooh,
you need to play in my game then.
And then
because Danimal does it.
the feat that lets you use your weapon as a focus, as an arcane focus, I've never had that either. Like, I played my Eldritch Knight Warforged, and I just cast spells, and we never thought about, like, well, does he have his wand out? Like, oh yeah, I probably would need a feat to do that. So sometimes in those cases, I wish that it was like, if my DM was using those rules, I wish that feats were like, you can take a free feat at first level, or because you're an Eldritch Knight, you have this feat where you can use your sword as a arcane focus. I don't know. That's where like, there's weird muddy ground with them. Like, oh, I took the actor feat. Oh, I took this one that lets me, like, do an extra 10 damage for no reason. You're like, what? So
yeah, I did take that one.
There you go.
If you min-max, and you can do some pretty min-maxy stuff if you really want to get into how high can I get my damage.
And I think that's the fun of character creation. Like, overall, I like feats a lot.
So I wish they were a full part of the game, not an optional. I would love an expanded list. I still think
when
they
you
should.
Say that, when you say you want it to be a full part of the game, what do you mean? Like,
that it's not optional. It's part of character creation. Feat is right there in the beginning or somewhere.
Everywhere that you've played is using it. So why do you want it to be declared full? Like, what will change about it that it will be when it's fully implemented? I guess I don't understand.
I could play with a DM who doesn't allow them at some point.
Well, yeah, but what are you going to do? Like, that's any DM. Even if it was an official part of the game, that DM could be like, by the way, I'm not allowing feats.
Well, here's what I think is that I don't think they created a lot of them because it's an optional part of the game, and I don't think they fine-tune them or put a ton of play testing into them because they called it an optional part of the game.
That's the answer I want.
They never expanded.
You want Wizards of the Coast to, like, look at it as a main function of the game and refine it in that.
Balance it into it, make it part of every normal day. That's what Paizo does with, a Pathfinder 2e. That's all part of it. It's not like an optional. It's this, it's there. It's part of creating your character and a way to make your character a little bit different than, say, somebody else who has maybe the same class as you.
Okay.
That's
I can get behind that. You're right.
Yeah.
Just more design approach towards it. I think that's cool.
Yeah. More options, but balanced options, play-tested options. that fit within the game, fit within the balance system that we possibly have. And variety. I just like the variety of them. And they have been doing more and more of them. So it has been nice. I mean, the current list of feats is pretty big if you go through all of the different books and pull them all out and put them on a list these days compared to what's just in Player's Handbook at the moment.
Correct.
So you can see, if you're really concerned, because what I've seen on Twitter quite a bit is lots of talk about Mordekainen's book. You always talk about why can't I have it now, which is what you focus on so far, but everybody else has been focusing on.
It's my D&D and I want it now.
Yeah, what's in there that's different? What's this mean for the future? And that kind of stuff. There are 5 videos just in the last week up over on Dungeons and Dragons where they kind of dive into. Jeremy Crawford talks a little bit more about what's in there, design philosophies behind it, why it's going on. So if you want a little bit more in-depth look, you can go watch those videos too and get some insider information as far.
Yeah, so and those are Todd Kenrick videos. I don't think we touched on this, but he is the new online content creator for Wizards of the Coast. So I've been telling people, I'm like, no, Todd Kenrick, he played the long game, and he was like, screw you fandom, and then went to the back seat, and now he's making these videos. And he's good at those conversational back and forth kind of videos that Wizards has come to enjoy. And he had the in because he knew all of like Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins and stuff.
And he had been doing it with D&D Beyond's team, the same thing. So he definitely has the practice, understands it from start to finish.
And I've watched these videos, and they're fun. And it is interesting to say, like, really the design philosophy behind it is they want to pull the stereotypes that the realms put on a lot of these races and things like that, and make them generic enough so that people can utilize them however they want. So if you want to have a planet of good Yuan-Ti who worship the all-loving Snake Mother, you can. And that's kind of the idea. And so I was like, okay, I can get behind that. It's interesting, and I'm really curious about like things like Counterspell, because the monsters are changing that. I'm now a wizard monster, but I'm not casting spells. I have abilities that do spell-like effects, and so it'll be interesting to see if the monsters are turned up to 11 or not. Wizards has a habit of making weak monsters, Wizards of the Coast, compared to other supplements like Kobold Press. I'm like, these are great. Like, oh, these are so difficult. I love these monsters. And then I go back to like Wizards monsters, and I'm like, this is a little underpowered, but so.
Yeah. I also noticed that was about it for D&D. We still don't know what book's coming after Netherdeep. We don't know what the next non-Critical Role book would be besides Monsters of the Multiverse, which you can get now, but that's a recollection and a rewriting of previous material. I don't think they said there was anything new in it that hadn't appeared in print somewhere else. I don't think anybody's reported that. So
Mordekainen's Manual of Feats. That's what chat thinks is coming out next.
That's what I need. So we're still waiting to hear even a hint. We haven't had any of those talk shows lately at Wizards anymore. They don't do those anymore like they did last year with Kate Welch and all them, where they would get on and they would give us teasers throughout the year. They've not been doing any of that.
And there's a new Wizards of the Coast president or CEO. Did you hear that?
Oh, no, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, so it's some lady. I actually don't know much about it, but she stepped up and she's the new, because I think their CEO is now the CEO of Hasbro. Like, Wizards was doing so well that they like shifted some people internally. So I don't think this is going to change the direction of Wizards of the Coast anything, but yeah.
Okay. All right.
So,
well, I have, we know in our show lately, we've been doing Lucian's kind of, everybody take a drink. He's talking about Pathfinder.
This is for
we're doing some Pathfinder news. This is for, some of those fans out there that are like, yes, Pathfinder news. The one thing I did find, I looked up a couple things. Beatles and Grimm's is working with Paizo. I don't know if you looked at this link.
They have in the past. They've been doing some books, like fancy books as well. But
did they? Oh, I hadn't caught them.
It's not been on the high radar, and maybe it's because Pathfinder 2 is a little, but they have been working with Paizo for a little bit. But these books that you linked in the chat, or not in the chat, but linked in our notes, look really cool.
Yeah, it's basically like a comprehensive diary or catalog that you could buy for your character, and it has your rules for your class in it and the things that you would need to know to play the game, but it also is page after page for you to write in your character sheet and your story and take your notes of the storyline that it was in. So like when it's done, like let's say you go through all of Dungeon of the Mad Mage, even though that's not Pathfinder, I get it, but my character start to finish for Dungeon of the Mad Mage, I could go through the whole thing, catalog all of it, and then eventually put this on the shelf, and I could always go back and look at this character and say, oh, that's right.
Yeah, you have the tome of the Eric Okra Ranger or whatever, fighter.
I thought it was a really cool idea. I'd not seen anybody do this.
And the books, I put the link in the chat if you guys are curious, but they also come with a dry erase board, because that's really good to like write spell slots and things like that. And so it is just a way to, and you could do that yourself. Like,
you could, but
like I have books like this that I'm writing stuff in all the time, but these look really nice and they're professional and they've got like a big glyph and it says like clerical tome of whatever. And I would definitely be interested in this if I was playing in a very like serious campaign and I knew we were going to go at least 10 levels in some direction. Then it would be like, this would be a fun investment to
a character you knew you wanted to remember the details, like a character you knew you were going to play for a long time, you liked them enough. For you, I would think it would be like your Joshe character would be a really good
Joshe's the best
character for this one, like, and for me, like Vanguard or Khan, which are the two I played through either Tomb of Annihilation or Khan is just going so good right now. Dungeon of the Mad Mage is just such a great character, and this to have a book to catalog that whole thing would just be really fun and cool. So
and I think this also comes back to my love of props, and this just feels like a prop, even though it's a tool that you're using. But I love it. So they look really nice, and they've got like they fake leather, but it's all and then the ribbons and stuff within it. It's super cool,
high quality, definitely. It's out on Paizo.com, so you can definitely go get it. Even if I didn't put my link in chat, but just Paizo.com. It's right on the front page, and you can go right to them working with Beatles and Grimm. The other thing, I went and checked Nexus for us all, because I know some of us are interested in what Nexus is doing. Nexus is right now partnered with Paizo to do the Pathfinder 2E full kind of, same thing that we're doing with D&D Beyond, basically that same kind of virtual tabletop and all the tools and things that you need. I wanted to see if there was any updates. I didn't see anything too much yet here in January and February. It looks all pretty much the same. You can get most of the 2E books that are the rule books there unlocked, and you can buy them. The website is up in a free kind of format to just check it out and look at monsters and magic items.
Yeah, go make a free account, because I did, and I was like perusing around, and they're also trying to do a scheduling service, which I thought was kind of interesting, where you can like say, hey, I've got a game, I need players, or hey, I'm looking for this type of game, and you can rate yourself as a dungeon master for, I really like story, or I really like combat, or I use this virtual tabletop, and I'm assuming at some point they're going to want to have their own virtual tabletop that they're going to use, and so
I think it's coming. And then the other thing I saw on their page, supposedly coming this year, we will see, is they've partnered with World of Darkness to bring all of the World of Darkness books in, and Free League is now listed there too as coming soon.
Yep, and that's
so we love Free League books. Yep. So that's what I saw on Nexus. Those were my Paizo news. Right now in February, the things that are releasing are mostly Adventure Path stuff, and it's not till we get into March that another rules book comes out. So
interesting.
Keep an eye on that.
Cool.
That's the news.
Is that mech book out for Starfinder?
I thought so.
Okay, yeah. I was trying to remember. I wanted to read that to see how well, I guess I should read Starfinder first. But somebody on Twitter was like, do you ever just read tabletop RPGs for fun?
I saw this.
And I quoted and retweeted it, and I'm like, that's 90% of my free time reading is just like, a game book. I'll go read this. I'm never going to play it. But anyway, I was thinking about that because I was really curious how you could go from like how much does the game shift from I'm going to play my Starfinder character to like now I'm using that character in a mech area, you know? Because so I like that because I like mechs a lot. I think that would be.
I'd love mechs. I buy all the games that are mechs. Speaking of that, you weren't here. I got to tell Danimal about it. He didn't seem as into it as I was. I read through all of the quick start rules of Homeworld Revelations TTRPG.
Oh yeah,
they released it, and boy, does that look good.
Really.
Okay. Yeah, if you're a Homeworld fan,
which is a video game, PC game from like
real-time strategy in space.
Yeah,
I don't even remember, a long time ago. Cool. But what they're doing is the storyline starts you out with the Deserts of Karak.
Okay.
Storyline. So if any of you have played the game, you might have realized that the first couple of expansions were all space-based mothership real-time strategy game, but eventually they put out one where it had crash landed on a planet and you did a real-time strategy on a desert.
That's planet. Right. That was the one I didn't play because I played Homeworld 1 and 2, and that was the third one. Yeah, okay.
Play it.
I should.
It's really good.
I'll go look it up.
Probably pick it up. It's super cheap. The first adventure they put in there is you are doing something right from that storyline, which is super cool. I love it's a 2D20 system, just like the Star Trek Adventures game is from Modiphius, and I liked all the rules I've been seeing. It was really interesting. It had me really excited, and this is why I asked you about Da Vinci, because I thought about doing a deep dive series on breaking down the different rule parts and making little videos based on character creation, combat rules, roleplay rules, world lore, and just break it down for anybody that kind of wanted to get into this and try to explain it a little bit better if just reading the quick start's not getting you there. So it's one of these little projects I wrote on my notepad that maybe I'll get to, that it'd be cool to have like a little mini series, 4 or 5 videos explaining this quick start guide so that you can play it and really get into it. So
that's really cool.
I was excited. You should get it. It's free to download.
Yeah. Is it Modiphius, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the free rules are on modiphius.com, I assume. Are you, is it like Star Trek Adventures where you're a crew? Or is it more of an individual? Like, how would you explain the classes?
You are an individual, and they do have ship combat rules so that when you are in ships, you can fight. So there's fighters, and remember, in the game, you're so excited because you send your miners out, but then you're creating your scout fighters, your tactical fighters, you're sending out your frigates, then you're building your destroyers and your assault frigates and all that. Mm-hmm. They have rules for all of that kind of battle, but you're basically a person walking around, your boots on the ground in this world. So it's more about being in that world than it is about I have 25 ships and we're battling. They do have rules for ship combat and stuff. And in the adventure, they put in a ship combat where you're trying to leave the planet with something and a ship is trying to chase you and shoot you down.
Nice.
So I think it's very much like Star Trek. You're a crew. You're different people that are investigating. To me, the storylines that would work great with this are a lot about archaeological kinds of stories, going to places because you heard a rumor there might be something there, and then digging around or trying to find something or searching, and then you do find it, and then storylines of you're about to be wiped out and there's a bigger entity that does everything they can to wipe you out, and the minute they know where you are, they come in like gangbusters, right? So you're always hiding, you're always stealthing away, you're always trying to build enough power that you can't be knocked out. That kind of storyline, I think, would be great for this. And TTRPG.
It is a fun world that has a lot of history, but I think it's something that people don't know. Like there's fans of Homeworld, but even I don't think I would know all of the species and stuff. This would be a really fun generic sci-fi world to play in. I think too, and the artwork is fantastic. It really reminds me of the Tales from the Loop kind of stuff, and I love it. I love the angularness of it. I love the ship construction. I love all of it. So I'll go check it out. Sounds cool.
Very cool. All right. Well, talking points, game. What are you thinking? We're towards the end of our show. You didn't play very many games.
I didn't play any games. If you want to talk to us about Dungeon of the Mad Mage, go right ahead.
It's been going good.
Yeah,
I mean, we talked about it a lot last
PvP?
week.
What is this?
Yes.
What's going on here? This is D&D, not PvP.
That's right. Well, what's happened is has become a big rivalry. If you remember from last week's show, for those of you who were here, Jordan wasn't, so I'll refresh him.
Oh, thank you.
We talked quite a bit about Danimal is running 2 parties through the same module. His home party is a couple floors ahead of us, and they were like a month or 2 ahead of us starting the module, and we're right behind them, my party. So he has 2 physical parties running the same module, doing all the same kinds of stuff. I had him confirm, are we in the same timeline? And in his head, what he has said, his canon is, everything outside of Dungeon of the Mad Mage, we're in the same timeline, in the same world. But when we step into Dungeon of the Mad Mage, we're stepping into a multiverse of Dungeons of the Mad Mage by Hallister. Like, Hallister has created this magical version of it, and there's a million slivers of it. And
so you're in your own dungeon,
in our own
and they're in
dungeon,
their own dungeon. So yeah.
But when we go back to Waterdeep, we're all in Waterdeep. We could meet up in Waterdeep. This has caused the 2 groups to start talking trash to each other, and who can do what better, and who can live better, and who's better fighting at stuff, to the point that there might actually be a PvP happening between the 2 groups at some point. We're trying to talk Danimal into letting us fight. They're higher level, but they have 1 less person in their party. We have 1 more person in our party, but we're lower level. And they watch the show pretty religiously, our show, so they know everything we can do in all of our characters. We don't know anything about theirs. So that's the big PvP that's brewing for this Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
I don't know. It just reminds me of war games where the only winning move is not to play when it talks about PvP.
Yeah. Well, me and Danimal were talking about. He's like he's worried because in something like this, people can get a little overexcited, right? Yeah. Anytime you go a little competitive, anytime you get a little over amplified in your emotions, because he doesn't want to do it. He wants everybody to have fun. He wants everybody to take it to be fun. Then he's willing to do it, but he doesn't want to sacrifice, the groups being mad at each other, or not being a fun experience all of a sudden because somebody got too competitive or somebody started to be an asshole or something, which could happen. You never know when you get into that heated moment. So hopefully it'll happen. Hopefully our guys take it good-heartedly. They've got a strong, high-level team. Just to give you an idea, for those of you that want to theory craft a little bit of this, they've got as far as I know, they've got a monk.
Are you scouting out the competition here?
They watch our show. Yes, we are. They have a monk, a warlock, a cleric, Tempest cleric, and a rogue.
Okay.
The psychic knife rogue.
Oh,
Tempest
soul
cleric.
Knife,
yeah. The genie warlock, I think. The noble warlock, I think is what it's called. Noble genie.
Yeah.
Patron.
Yeah.
And then the monk, I don't remember what subclass he is, but apparently he's pretty tough. Our team is the arcane archer, twilight cleric, me. The fighter barbarian, Warforge, the wizard, straight wizard, cleric, and artificer. We have 1 more person than they do. They are at level 13. We are at level 11. So if any of you are out there theory crafting all that through your head, that's the thing that we've all been thinking about for the last 2 weeks, is how do we beat some level 13s with the stuff that they have available to them, and we're lower level. They also have some pretty strong magic items, because Danimal loves to give his groups strong magic items. Yeah. Almost to the point they're probably a little overpowered. Both of our teams are really, but
I don't know. I think it's going to come down to dice rolls. So.
Would you run a PvP game? Like if you took your Hot Springs Island group and your home group with your wife and the people that played at your table, and you were like, okay, guys, make your characters, and we're gonna have them fight in a cool little arena thing. Do you think you would do a little PvP?
I've wanted to, and Nathan is watching the show here, but specifically, I've wanted him to run a PvP for me and Jason. Like I want to one of our players,
him.
Jason. I've been wanting to like smash him in like my warlock's better than your wizard or something. But when the rules are not there in place, I don't know. It always just comes down to you. I don't know. Yes, I've always been curious, but I don't think it would work. And
I don't think it'll be as fun as you think it will be.
Yes, and that's the other thing is I don't think it'll be fun, and especially characters that you're invested in. You never want to be like, well, I like failed this. Like if we were just building characters to then like fight each other, that would be a fun test. Because it's like, what are you gonna make? I don't know. What are you gonna make? Kind of thing. Because then you don't care about these characters, but the way you're talking in this instance, they have magic items, they have stories, they have all this other stuff, and then to like come at the end and be like, well, I don't know, like I failed this or something. I don't know. I don't think I would want to know that, kind of a thing. Like I don't want to know if I would win against somebody else or something. But and as a DM, it would be probably. Well, I was gonna say it would be difficult, but as a DM, it would probably be pretty easy. Because it kind of DMs itself. Like, I attack you. Okay. What's your armor? Okay. And like, do a saving throw. And really, they would have to just have the conversation, I'm assuming 2 players fighting. But we all know that 2D combat is the only honorable combat. And I can't get this 3D terrain D&D dice rolling combat. No. It always comes back to King of Fighters. So.
Aarakocra, man, get up high.
There you go.
I think I have done. We did one in Revenar where we did this session where a god challenged the party to show their worthiness, and to show that they were worthy, they had to fight each other to see who was the strongest. And he put them in an arena, and he went. There was like 6 of them, and 2 fought 2, then 2, and we went through the whole little tournament, one-on-one kind of tournament thing with very little terrain, just a tiny bit, enough to do a little bit, but not much. And, some classes fared better than other classes and that kind of thing. Some people have better abilities for that type of thing. And everybody, I think, had a fairly good time, but it wasn't the best thing, and they wanted to do it every single episode after that. Like, it was so good that this is all we should do. So
D&D Thunderdome,
never think that that's going to take the place of the regular fun of the play. It could be fun to bring it in. And what they found out after this sequence happened with the god is that really they were just fighting replicas that the god had created of their friend, and they would have to fight their friend. And at the end of it, they were all alive again. They could all move on, and the god agreed that they were worthy to continue and take this quest on to save, the world, kind of thing. So it was just kind of fun in that context. But I think you got to be very careful with it. It could go bad very quickly. It could be something that's not fun and could turn people off of playing. If they get too competitive, they get too attached to their character and something happens. Like, I could just imagine if you're running it and I'm fighting your wife's character and I shoot her dog, we're automatically not having fun.
Well, at that point, a real-life chair will fly across the room at your head. So
Right. Right. So you got to take it, be cognizant of what you're going to do with your party.
And mechanically, it's difficult, though. Like, I ran... All of my players went up to a mirror once, and then their doppelgangers walked out of the mirror, and we had a big fight of, like, them fighting themselves. And in my mind, I'm like, this is going to be so cool. But at the table, it was so complicated because you had, like, magic items and all this other weird stuff. And, like, it gets a little... That's why I think one-on-one could be fun. Like, like Joshe versus Aarakocra, Ka or whatever. But, like... I don't a big group match versus a big group match. I pulled my hair out trying to DM that, so I don't think that would be as much fun. But
yeah,
so I don't know.
Don't do it. Theater of the mind.
I don't think you can. Yeah.
Save your... No, that'll mess it all up. You have to have it on a virtual tabletop, or you have to have it at your house.
Because I have to know exactly your
everybody
in range
has
of this.
to know.
Yeah,
everybody has to know. Yep. Uh-oh.
We've got a siren. It's the first of the month.
What's that telling us?
It's telling us that it's 11, or it's time to go. Well, it's 11 o'clock my time. I wanted to point out really quick, though, I did a review of Weird Frontiers for Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is a Wild West version of Dungeon Crawl Classics set in the Weird West, and they sent me dice. Like, the guys were just like, hey, thanks for the review, and they sent me, like, Cthulhu-y dice. So these are some fun Dungeon Crawl Classics dice that they sent me. And I just want to, like, shout out to them. They're really cool guys. They wrote a really fun game. And if you like weird Western stuff, the art, everything's really cool about it. So
I love weird Western stuff.
Soon to be a hardback, which I want to buy. But right now it's this like 900-page PDF, and I'm like, you need to split that into 3 books ASAP, because that is way too many. This was fun. This was a good show. It's good to be back. We will be back, of course, next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Anything else before we take off, sir?
That's it. We're deep into February. There's lots of snow here. I'm ready for winter to be over. I don't know where it is
that will
in your
be nice.
Time zone or time or country. If you're in the depths of winter, I wish you luck, because I'm tired of snow blowing and doing all that. I'm ready for spring and summer. I can tell you. Oh, Gen Con. Yeah. I got my tickets.
Cool.
Mine got turned over, so I am officially, at this point, going to be doing Gen Con.
Awesome. I applied for my press badge. I'll hear back about it. But I've gotten the last like 2 times, so I'm assuming I'm going to get it again, but we'll see. Yeah. And that is on my to-go list, pending the world not being on fire, so we'll see. But
the next deadline, I think, is in February. Keep an eye on your emails, because that's when they open up the housing lottery. You could get lucky if you get that. I'm hoping to get lucky this year. I've never gotten lucky in any of the years I've gone. I've gotten the dregs. But maybe this year I'll get lucky. So
we'll see.
I'll keep everybody posted on that.
Excellent. We'll be back next week, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.
Bye-bye.